Thank you so much, Brian, for that very, very generous introduction. Hi, I am Jesse Bradley, and every other week I improvise a what I believe to be true story. Uh, these particular stories are not pre-planned. They are not prepared by any means. I've been actually listening to the jam to figure out where to start, as I did last week. So I think I know where I'm going to start. But before I do want to provide a disclaimer that some difficult subject matters may come up, as just want to make sure that people are aware, as I am improvising this story or essay that, I'm going to delve into some difficult subject matter. So just as a potential content warning. Also, keep forgetting to do this every time, but any names or details may have been changed to protect the original identity of anyone who I talk about in the set. But again, this is what I believe to be true. So for this one, I am going to talk about COVID dating, because I found that was very interesting at the jam that came up. So 2 months, well, not even 2 months, really a month before COVID went into high gear, before it really started spreading across the country, I just moved out of the house that my wife and at the time and I was sharing. Our marriage was finally ending after a long and slow death, because of a miscarriage, because of so many other things, as any and all relationships do. They either fall apart, just explode, or they just decay over time. Or if you're one of the few lucky ones, your partner, it's either you or your partner who's going to go, beyond wherever it is that you believe that you are going to go. And at this point, I'm not in a headspace that to be in a relationship with anybody at all, because I'm experiencing this death of a relationship, a death of a marriage, death of being with someone it was with this particular person for almost a little over 7 years, and we were married for 5 years. And I'm back on the dating scene. I'm on dating apps just to see, I want to meet people and just get myself out there. And I find this particular woman on Bumble. StatCat is who I'm going to refer to as again, not her real name. But StatCat wasn't like anyone I've ever dated, was interested in before. My weaknesses when it involves women include like tattoos and goth girls. Total, just how I've always been. And the thing about StatCat, we had tacos in common. We love tacos. And she had this really cute smile and these really beautiful hazel eyes. And she also absolutely loves Disney. Like, wears mouse ears, is an annual pass holder. And I am not someone who loves Disney by any means whatsoever. I avoid it like the plague, or I avoided it like the plague, which probably shouldn't be saying that now, because we're clearly not very good at avoiding the plague. And I'm in this headspace of getting myself back out there and just meeting new people. And I'm like, okay, why not? I'm going to go ahead and start having a conversation and meeting this particular person if she swipes back. And she does. StatCat swipes back at me, and We start talking, and we're talking as I'm finishing moving out of my house. And Stat Cat is fully aware of my situation. I'm being upfront. I'm like, hey, I am not looking for anything. Just looking to meet new people, to go out dating and whatnot. And Stat Cat confesses to me that she hasn't had really good luck with dating, as in she's only been on one date, and it was with a guy who, this is back when she was in Massachusetts getting her master's in science, and then like eventually working as a lab scientist before she became a doctor. And he apparently lived in his dad's basement, and he ate clam pasta with his hands, and they were supposed to go to a movie, and it was an a total train wreck. And in the back of my head, I am thinking like, okay, Stat Cat has never had a good date, so it is going to be my mission to give her a good date, that I want to at least be a good ghost story for her. Even if nothing ever, don't think anything is ever going to happen whatsoever. I'm just going to give her a really good date experience, and that's cool. If nothing else happens, at least she has a good memory, a dating memory. So Stat Cat and I, we agreed to meet at a local brewery, and we are hitting it off right away. Like, we're having a great conversation. She's telling me more about her day-to-day life of being an OBGYN. I'm telling her more of my life about what I do and whatnot. And after a couple of beers, we walk across the street to go get tacos, since we both love tacos, and we are a couple of beers in. And we jaywalk across the street. So already right there, I'm already liking Stat Cat more, because she's clearly more fearless than I think, because we're both willing to just jaywalk and risk traffic while 2 beers in, for tacos. That way we wouldn't have to wait at a crosswalk. And as we're in the parking lot, I decide in this moment, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I am going to kiss her. And I do. So I have never experienced, so I've been married a couple of times at this point, and I've never, there's that kind of like romantic movie cliche where when you kiss somebody, you suddenly see what your life is going to be like with this particular person. And I kissed Stat Cat, and I see myself with her, like being an annual pass holder and going to Disney, and it scares the shit out of me a little bit, but I'm also kind of thrilled by this, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know how to process this. Like, I'm trying to get out of a life, and I kiss this person, and I'm like, holy shit, I've never experienced this in my entire life. And I want to kiss her again, just to like double check to make sure. And she's like, no, you're not going to do that. And I'm totally fine with that. And we get tacos, and our date ends perfectly. And we part ways, and I text her and make sure that she gets home and whatnot. So our second actual date. So Stat Cat is also like, she loves country pop. So we're talking like Maren Morris and Dan and Shay, like bands I have never heard of in my entire life, because I'm like a hipster fuck, listening to The National and The Cure, and drinking my old fashions and just listening to my vinyl music. And I decide that, I'm going to take her to a movie, and it's a movie at the local art house theater. It's called Portrait of a Girl on Fire. I'm like, okay. And she's down for it. So again, already in like I'm really liking her, and she is completely down, completely adventurous. And I think it takes place in like 17th or 18th century France. Um, about these two women. One of them is a painter. Um, the other one, I don't. I think she works as a servant in the house, who gets knocked up by um, uh, like some page or horseman or something. So as we're watching this, one, there's a scene where the pregnant girl is running up and down the beach, and I'm just going, okay, I have taken the OBGYN to a movie in which they are trying to induce an abortion. Oh, that's fantastic, great. And I'm just wondering, I'm like, okay, is this where like she stops talking to me? Is this where things are going to stop or going to end? Like, we're going to be done after this. And Stat Cat, she goes, that's not going to work. That just never works at all. Running up and down the beach, trying to abort your baby, trying to get a miscarriage, is just not going to work. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to like her even more. And there's another part where they're talking about Orpheus. I forget who his partner was. Pardon my memory for Greek mythology, but Hades lets Orpheus take his partner out of the underworld, and the only condition is that he's not allowed to look at her until they're above ground, or else she disappears. This is also where like Lot, the whole story of Lot, they steal this from Greek mythology, and so he decides to go on and look at her anyway. And one of the two main characters, she goes, well, he made the poet's choice. And I immediately turned to her, as being someone who's been a poet and who's written poetry, goes, never make the poet's choice. And it just, what I thought was going to be a complete clusterfuck because of this like weird indie movie, it turned out to be a really great date. And after I left, I dropped her off. I told her, what I told her was that if you find anyone better, go ahead and go after that particular person, because I'm not in the space of being with anyone at all. I'm like getting separated, getting divorced. And it was the first time I've ever said that to somebody where I didn't believe it. And then to the point where I actually was crying on the way home, because I'm thinking like, shit, I actually really like this person a lot. And I don't believe that. I just couldn't believe it. And I actually do admit that to her. I'm like, hey, I don't necessarily believe what I said. Like, if I'm in this weird situation, and like, if you find someone better, great. But if you don't, you don't. Like, I mean, I want you to be happy. And we keep talking, and she ends up going to Nashville. Like, I cancel a trip because COVID is coming. Like, it's here, it's stateside. And meanwhile, she still goes to Nashville with her parents to go see some country shows. And there's like everything, a part of me wants to stop her from going, but we're not at that point in our relationship yet, because we're just still dating and whatnot. And we start being like really getting to know each other more and more and more. And I ask her, I'm like, hey, I want to meet you at the airport when you come back. I want to be the first person that you meet. And I've never done that before. I've never, I've done romantic gestures before. I've written poems before. I've written poems before. That's been like the most romance I've ever done. But I've never done like this whole like romance movie, like meet someone at the airport, be the first thing that they see when they're coming off the plane or getting off the bus or getting off the train. And I wanted to do that for her, and I didn't want to be a creep and like just be there. I wanted to get her permission, and she gave me that permission. And that's when I started to realize that that Stat Cat was someone who I wanted to be with, not as like a rebound, or as I'm alone, I'm feeling lonely. I wanted to be with her for her. And I'm open and honest with her the whole time. And we end up starting really, really dating, start like being just a couple, right when the world shuts down. The advantage of dating someone when the world shuts down is you have a lot of time to get to know them. You have a lot of time to hang out and to talk, because the two of you are kind of in this, you're in this bubble because you can't really go out and go anywhere. Um, you can't really do anything other than hang out with each other at each other's houses. Uh, so we really, really got to know each other incredibly well. And this was, uh, this is about 3 months into our relationship, three and a half months. And Stat Cat like calls me like in the middle of the day. And I know something is wrong because like we typically talk at night before we go to bed when we're not seeing each other. And Stat Cat goes, Jesse, I've tested positive for COVID. I'm so sorry. And I knew this was a risk, that as a doctor, as an OBGYN who was still seeing patients, still delivering babies, that this would be a risk. And I accepted this risk. I knew this was going to be a risk. I also knew the precautions that she took, constantly wearing masks. Sometimes she would wear like a spacesuit where she's sweating buckets when she's in surgery and she's delivering babies. And I know all of this, and I'm good with this because Stat Cat's my person. And I'm so worried about, I'm more worried about her than me, because she does more good than I do. Like if I'm found dead in my apartment alone, okay, I'm okay with that. I've had a good run at this point, but I didn't want something bad to happen to her. So I'm like, I'm not mad at you. It's not your fault. This was going to happen. And the next morning, I get in my car and I go and I wait in this long queue for hours and hours at the convention center, and then eventually my car is marked that way, that I'm here for COVID tests, and then I go and drive into my car, and I have to get out several times to go pee because I'm nervous, because I'm like, I don't want anything to happen, and we're not able to see each other because we're both in quarantine. And we FaceTime every day, and she apologizes, and I'm not mad at her at any point. And we're both like, I'm waiting for something to happen, where I'm waiting for symptoms. I'm waiting to lose my sense of taste. I'm waiting to lose my sense of smell. I'm waiting for something to happen. She's waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't. And I also get an at-home test because I want to be able to know that I'm going to be okay. And the hospital that she has privileges at has to test her. They take care of her testing. So the at-home test for me comes back negative. Like this is like day 7 or 8 in my quarantine. And yet my state test comes back at the same time on the same morning, positive. So that means that, holy shit, I'm incredibly lucky. I'm negative for COVID and I didn't experience any symptoms. I'm so fucking lucky. And meanwhile, waiting for StatCat to get her negative tests. She has to have to in order for her to be cleared to go back to work. And I can't see her until she gets her negative test results. So she gets her first negative test results a couple of days later. And I'm like, okay, you're going to get the second test result and everything is going to be fine and everything's going to be good and we're going to see each other. And she's like, no, I don't believe that. I don't think that the second test is going to come back negative. And And I know this is Stat Cat's anxiety brain talking because she's a brilliant scientist and a brilliant doctor. And I'm like, what are the chances that you're going to have a negative and a positive test, or that's a false positive or a false negative? And she's like, you're right. It's almost impossible. It's when that she texts me that she got her second negative test result is where the excitement starts building for me, that I'm going to get to see her for the first time in almost 2 weeks. And I go to our favorite Italian deli and I get her favorite sandwich and materials that we need to make our weekly Italian meal. And I'm finally finishing work because I'm also working at home the whole time, dealing with this anxiety. And I'm like, I let her know that I am on my way there. I'm on my way to her house. And I get in my car and it starts pouring. It is a biblical storm. And I am hunched over my steering wheel, peering through my windshield, the windshield wipers just squeaking madly as I am driving as slow as possible because I haven't seen her in 2 weeks. This is the longest that we have been apart. And I am not going to let anything stop me at this point. And it's almost like the universe, this is my final test. Like it was the final test, because as I'm about a mile away from her house, the rain clears up, the sky clears, and I pull into her driveway and I open the door, and there she is. And I knew that I loved her before, that I was in love with her before, but realizing what life would be without her, during that time, during that crisis, it made me realize that I had finally found my person. I have finally found home. And a week after that happened, the week after that happened, I was like, you know what, what's the point of me leaving? I don't understand why I need to go back to my apartment anymore. And she was like, yeah, you're right. And I have been with her. We are together now for almost 2 years. I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. So I wasn't expecting any of this at all. Where that I was going to, like, out of a divorce, end up like finding the person who I have always wanted to be with. That the only thing that I am more sorry for than anything else is that I didn't find her sooner. So that's it. That is my COVID dating story. Thank you all so much. Super quick. Please donate to Planned Parenthood or to any organization that is protecting a woman's right to choose, who is fighting this stupid Texas law or any other prohibitive abortion law. Please donate money and time. I just wanted to shout that out there. Thank you all so much for listening to me.